Ma'am, stop right there. What are you doing on this floor?
I'm heading to a meeting. Is there a problem?
This area is restricted. I need to see some identification right now.
Of course, I work here. Let me show you my badge.
Huh, okay. Sure, anyone can get a fake badge printed nowadays.
Officer, you can verify my identity.
Ma'am, stop right there. What are you doing on this floor? The marble corridor of Atlanta City Hall, 3rd floor, 2:47 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon. Afternoon light filtered through tall windows. The faint hum of printers and muted phone conversations drifted from nearby offices. Patricia Henderson turned, portfolio in hand. Navy blue suit, pearl earrings, sensible heels clicking against polished stone. Good afternoon, officer. I'm heading to a meeting. Is there a problem? This area's restricted. I need to see some identification. Henderson's expression remained professional, controlled. She'd navigate this calmly. She always did. Of course, I work here. That's what they all say. What happened in the next 14 minutes would cost Officer Marcus Brennan his badge, his pension, and his freedom. It would cost the city of Atlanta $30 million, and it would expose a pattern of bias that had been ignored for nearly a decade. To understand how catastrophically stupid this moment was, you need to know exactly who Patricia Henderson is. Patricia Henderson, 52, was the deputy mayor of Atlanta, Georgia, the second highest-ranking official in the city's government. She'd earned her J.D. from Yale Law School, graduating magna cum laude. Before that, a master's in public administration from Harvard Kennedy School. Her undergraduate degree came from Spelman College with a perfect 4 GPA in political science. 23 years in public service. She'd started as an assistant district attorney, prosecuting cases that other attorneys avoided: police misconduct, civil rights violations, corruption. She'd won 87% of her cases that went to trial. From there, city council member, budget committee chair, then deputy mayor after a landslide election that gave her 64% of the vote. Her responsibilities were staggering. She oversaw public safety, police affairs, and municipal operations. She managed 2,400 city employees across 12 departments, including the police department. She chaired the Police Accountability Commission. She literally signed off on police promotions, disciplinary actions, and policy changes. Her budget decisions affected $200 million in city operations. She'd reduced the city's deficit by $47 million through strategic reform. Mayor James Wilson would later testify, "Patricia is the most competent administrator I've worked with in 30 years of politics. She's not just my deputy mayor, she's irreplaceable." She was personal friends with Georgia's governor. She had weekly strategy meetings with the mayor. She was on a first-name basis with the U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Georgia. Mother of 2 college graduates, she volunteered at her church's legal aid clinic every Saturday morning. Her neighbors described her as the woman who remembers everyone's name and actually fixes problems. On March 14, 2024, none of that would matter. She was about to encounter someone who didn't see her credentials, her experience, or her authority. Someone who only saw a black woman in a suit who didn't belong. Officer Marcus Brennan, 34, badge number 4387, had been with the Atlanta Police Department for 8 years. He'd grown up in suburban Marietta, son of a firefighter. He joined APD at 26, motivated, he said during his academy interview, by wanting to make a difference. His academy performance was unremarkable, middle of his class, adequate firearms scores, past defensive tactics. He'd worked patrol in Zone 3 for 5 years before being transferred to City Hall security detail. Lower profile, lower risk, fewer opportunities for confrontation. On paper, his record looked clean: 3 commendations for routine arrests. Evaluations described him as dedicated and thorough. But there was something else buried in his personnel file. 9 citizen complaints over 6 years. All 9 involved black civilians. All 9 followed a similar pattern: stops based on vague suspicions, dismissal of identification, escalation, accusations of matching a description or acting suspiciously. All 9 had been investigated by Lieutenant Frank Morrison, Brennan's previous supervisor in Zone 3. All 9 were marked unfounded or insufficient evidence. No discipline recommended, no pattern identified, no intervention attempted. Brennan considered himself a good cop, thorough, by the book. He told colleagues he didn't see race, he just followed his instincts. Those instincts were about to cost him everything. On March 14, 2024, Patricia Henderson, Yale Law graduate, Deputy Mayor, Police Oversight Authority, and Marcus Brennan, 8-year veteran with 9 dismissed complaints, were about to collide. Thursday, March 14, 2024, 2:47 p.m., temperature 68 degrees, overcast skies, threatening rain. Patricia Henderson had been in meetings since 6:30 that morning. Budget review, Police Reform Committee, press briefing on infrastructure projects. Now she had 13 minutes to reach conference room 3C on the 3rd floor for the most important interview of the year, the final police chief candidate. Robert Torres, 28-year veteran, former FBI crisis negotiator, had flown in from Los Angeles. This was the department's 4th candidate. The first 3 hadn't made it past the selection committee. If this interview failed, the department would remain under interim leadership for months, a political disaster during an election year. Henderson carried a leather portfolio containing Torres' background check, her interview questions, and police reform proposals she planned to discuss. She wore a navy blue suit, white blouse, pearl earrings, professional, authoritative, exactly how a deputy mayor should look. 3 floors below, Officer Marcus Brennan received a call on his radio. Security to 3rd floor administrative wing. Caller reports suspicious person near executive offices. Female, business attire, described as looking into windows, doesn't appear to have authorization. The caller, a temporary administrative assistant on her 2nd day, provided no description of criminal activity, no mention of what made the person suspicious, just a feeling. Brennan headed for the elevator. He didn't verify the complaint, didn't check building access logs, didn't consider that business attire near offices might describe literally anyone who worked there. He just knew someone didn't belong. Henderson was reviewing her notes, walking briskly, when she heard footsteps behind her. Fast, purposeful. She turned. Officer Brennan was 10 feet away, hand resting on his duty belt, his posture confrontational, suspicious. "Ma'am, step away from those offices. I need to see some identification." Henderson's internal calculation was immediate. Comply, de-escalate, clarify, move on. She had a meeting in 11 minutes. "Of course, officer. Is there a problem?" "Just do what I say. This won't take long if you cooperate." The phrasing made her pause. If you cooperate, not thank you for your cooperation. A threat dressed as instruction. "I'm happy to cooperate. I work here. I'm Deputy Mayor Patricia Henderson. I'm heading to an interview in the executive conference room." Brennan's expression didn't change. "I'll need to see some ID." Henderson reached into her jacket slowly, deliberately, and pulled out her City Hall access badge on a lanyard. The badge was impossible to misread. Large photo, bold text, PATRICIA Henderson Deputy Mayor All Access, official city seal embossed in gold. She held it at chest level, directly in front of Brennan, for 4 full seconds. His eyes barely focused on it. He glanced at it, then back at her face. "Anyone can get a fake badge printed. You have a driver's license. What's your actual business on this floor?" Henderson felt the first spark of frustration. She controlled it. "Officer, you can verify my identity through building security. I've worked here for 6 years. My office is 30 feet down this hallway. There's a nameplate on the door." "Just answer the question, ma'am." Henderson's tone shifted, still calm, still professional, but firmer. "Officer, I've identified myself. I've shown you my credentials. I've explained my legitimate business. I have a meeting in 9 minutes. Unless you have reasonable suspicion that I've committed a crime, I'm free to go. That's established law under Terry v. Ohio. Brennan's jaw tightened. Don't quote law at me. I'm responsible for this building's security and I've received a report. Just cooperate and we'll sort this out. Cooperate with what? You're detaining me without cause. Ma'am, don't make this harder than it needs to be. Henderson saw it clearly now. This wasn't going to end with reason. What's your badge number? 4387, and I need you to. Officer Brennan, badge 4387, I'm asking you directly. What reasonable suspicion do you have that I've committed, am committing, or am about to commit a crime? You were reported acting suspiciously. What specific behavior constitutes acting suspiciously? Silence. Officer, do you understand that I'm deputy mayor of this city? That I chair the Police Accountability Commission? That I have oversight authority over your department? Brennan stepped closer. I don't care if you're the Queen of England. You're being detained until I verify your identity. Turn around. Henderson's eyes widened, not fear, shock, disbelief. You're really going to do this? Turn around, ma'am. Henderson raised her hands, palms visible. I am not resisting, but I'm stating clearly for any recording device, this detention is unlawful. I've identified myself. I've provided credentials. You have no legal basis to detain me. I'm requesting your supervisor immediately. Brennan pulled out handcuffs. Save it for the supervisor. You can call whoever you want after we verify who you are. The metallic click echoed in the corridor. Henderson's hands were cuffed behind her back. The metal bit into her wrists, tight, too tig. HD. These cuffs are too tight, officer. Brennan didn't adjust them. Her voice remained steady, measured, every word calculated for whoever would review this later, and someone would definitely review this. Officer Brennan, I need you to answer specific questions. What reasonable suspicion did you have to detain me? You were reported acting suspiciously. What specific behavior? What action did I take that suggested criminal activity? The caller said you were looking into offices. I work here. I was walking to a meeting. Is walking while black in City Hall now suspicious? Don't make this about race. Then tell me, what was it about? You saw my badge. You refused to verify my identity. You ignored my explanation. What specific articulable facts justified this detention? Brennan's radio crackled, dispatch requesting his status. Henderson continued, her tone shifting to instructional, not angry, educational. Let me explain the Fourth Amendment, officer. You need reasonable, articulable suspicion that I've committed a crime. Looking suspicious isn't a crime. Walking near offices isn't a crime. Being black in a professional setting isn't a crime. You understand that, correct? Ma'am, do you understand that your body camera is recording this? That you've detained a city official without cause? That you've violated clearly established constitutional rights that I've explicitly cited? Footsteps fast, multiple people. Maria Cortez, Henderson's executive assistant, appeared at the end of the corridor. She froze. Officer, what are you doing? That's Deputy Mayor Henderson. Maria pulled out her phone. Within seconds, she was calling the mayor's office. 90 seconds later, Deputy Chief of Staff Raymond Cole rushed into the hallway, breathless. Officer Brennan, stop. That's Patricia Henderson, she's the deputy mayor. Brennan's expression shifted, confusion first, then recognition. Then horror. Sir, she didn't identify herself properly. I was following. She's the deputy mayor, Cole's voice cracked with urgency. She has a police chief interview in 5 minutes. The mayor is waiting. Uncuff her right now. Brennan fumbled for his keys. The handcuffs came off. Henderson rubbed her wrists. Red marks circled both. She straightened her jacket. Her voice was cold. No anger, just facts. Officer Brennan, you unlawfully detained me, refused to verify my identity, dismissed my credentials, and arrested me despite clear identification. Your body camera recorded everything. I'll be filing a formal complaint with Internal Affairs, a civil rights lawsuit, and referring this to the U.S. Attorney's Office for federal civil rights violations. You'll hear from our attorneys. Brennan stammered, "Ma'am, Deputy Mayor, I didn't realize." You didn't realize because you didn't verify. You assumed. That assumption just ended your career. Henderson turned to Cole. Reschedule the interview for tomorrow, same time. Apologize to candidate tours. Explain there was a security incident. Tell the mayor I'll brief him in 20 minutes. She walked toward her office, head high, shoulders back. She didn't look at Brennan again. He wasn't worth her time. Behind her, she heard Cole's voice, quiet but sharp. "Brennan, don't move, don't go anywhere. The watch commander is on his way." Internal Affairs assigned 2 senior investigators, Sergeant Keisha Roberts and Lieutenant David Park. They spent 6 weeks building the case. They reviewed 47 hours of body camera footage from Brennan's shifts, 23 dispatch records, personnel files dating back 8 years. They interviewed 14 witnesses, including the deputy mayor, the temporary assistant who made the call, and every officer who'd worked with Brennan. Patricia Henderson provided a detailed 8-page statement. She answered follow-up questions 3 times. She never raised her voice. She cited specific statutes, policies, and case law from memory. Brennan was interviewed twice. His defense: "I was following my training. I had reasonable suspicion based on the dispatch call. I didn't know who she was." But the investigators found something else. They pulled every complaint filed against Brennan since he joined the department. 9 complaints over 6 years. All 9 involved black civilians. All 9 followed the same pattern: vague dispatch call, assumption-based stop, dismissal of identification, escalation when victim questioned the detention. Every single one had been investigated by Lieutenant Frank Morrison, Brennan's supervisor in Zone 3. Every single one was marked unfounded or unsubstantiated. Roberts and Park tracked down the complainants. James Mitchell, 38, high school teacher, stopped while unloading groceries outside his home in July 2019. Brennan claimed Mitchell matched a burglary suspect description. Mitchell showed his driver's license with his address matching the house. Brennan detained him for 22 minutes. Complaint dism. Ist as insufficient evidence of racial bias. Shanice Turner, 29, accountant, detained while entering her office building in January 2021. Brennan said she looked nervous and avoided eye contact. She presented her company ID. Brennan searched her bag without consent. Complaint marked unfounded, stop justified by reasonable suspicion. Dr. Terrence Williams, 51, physician, stopped in hospital parking lot in May 2022 after finishing overnight shift. Brennan demanded to know why he was there at 6 a.m. Dr. Williams showed hospital credentials. Brennan accused him of stolen ID and detained him until a hospital security supervisor arrived. Complaint dismissed as unsubstantiated, officer judgment within discretion. The pattern was undeniable. The Internal Affairs report concluded, Officer Brennan demonstrated a consistent pattern of race-based assumptions, constitutional violations, and failure to follow verification protocols. These incidents were not isolated errors in judgment. They represent systemic bias enabled by inadequate supervisory oversight. Professor David Chen, constitutional law expert at Emory University, reviewed the case at the city's request. His analysis: this is textbook Fourth Amendment violation compounded by deliberate indifference. Officer Brennan was explicitly told he was violating constitutional rights by someone with a law degree from Yale and proceeded anyway. That's not negligence. That's willful deprivation of rights under color of law. Officer Marcus Brennan was terminated 11 days after the Internal Affairs investigation concluded. The Atlanta Police Union initially filed a grievance. It was quietly withdrawn 19 days later. Union president issued a brief statement. After reviewing all evidence, we've determined this termination was justified. Brennan lost his Georgia Peace Officer standards and training certification. State law prohibits him from working in any law enforcement capacity anywhere in Georgia. He appealed. The appeal was denied unanimously. Patricia Henderson filed a federal civil rights lawsuit under 42 U.S.C. Section 1983 in April 2024. The city of Atlanta settled in August 2024 for $30 million, the largest civil rights settlement in Georgia history. The breakdown: $18 million in compensatory damages for emotional distress, reputational harm, and civil rights violations. $12 million in punitive damages. Henderson donated $5 million to the ACLU's Criminal Justice Reform Program and $3 million to a legal defense fund for victims of police misconduct. The rest went to her legal team and establishing a police accountability training program. Brennan filed for bankruptcy in December 2024. He currently works as a warehouse supervisor in rural Alabama. He's never publicly apologized. But Brennan's termination was just the beginning. Lieutenant Frank Morrison, who had dismissed all 9 previous complaints, was forced into early retirement. An independent review found he failed in his supervisory responsibility to identify and address problematic patterns. His pension was reduced by 40%. The financial toll on Atlanta: $30 million settlement, $2.1 million in legal fees, $4.3 million in increased insurance premiums over 3 years, $1.8 million annually for federal monitoring compliance. Total: $38.4 million. The department implemented 9 major reforms. First, independent complaint investigation. All citizen complaints now investigated by a civilian review board with subpoena power, independent of the police department. Second, automated pattern recognition. Data tracking system flags any officer with more than 2 complaints of similar nature within 24 months. Automatic supervisory review triggered. Third, mandatory body camera review. All body camera footage from complaint incidents automatically reviewed by supervisors within 48 hours, regardless of complaint severity. Fourth, expanded constitutional training. Academy curriculum increased from 8 hours to 40 hours of constitutional law training. Annual 16-hour refresher required for all sworn officers. Fifth, real-time verification systems. Officers now have tablet access to property records, professional licensing databases, government employee databases, and building access logs. Sixth, supervisor accountability. Supervisors held directly accountable for failing to address patterns. 2. Unaddressed complaints of similar nature within 12 months, automatic demotion review. Seventh, early warning intervention. Any officer flagged by the automated system enters mandatory intervention. Additional training, psychological evaluation, paired with field training officer for 90 days. Eighth, body camera upgrades. $4.7 million invested in new body camera system with automatic cloud upload, tamper-proof storage, and AI flagging for potential civil rights violations. Ninth, the Henderson Protocol, named after Patricia Henderson, requires any officer detaining a government official to radio dispatch for identity verificati. On before any search or arrest. Failure: automatic 30-day suspension. The department reviewed 127 previous complaints that had been dismissed as unfounded. 7 other officers were identified as having similar patterns to Brennan's. 4 were terminated. 3 were placed under intensive supervision with last chance agreements. 12 additional victims received compensation totaling $8.3 million. The reforms didn't stop in Atlanta. Within 8 months, 23 other cities adopted similar policies. The case became required viewing in 47 police academies nationwide. The U.S. Department of Justice imposed a consent decree in October 2024. The Atlanta Police Department will remain under federal monitoring for at least 5 years. Patricia Henderson is still deputy mayor of Atlanta. She was re-elected in November 2024 with 68% of the vote, the highest margin in the city's history. She now leads a national task force on police accountability. She's consulted with 31 cities on reform implementation. She's testified before Congress twice. The reforms implemented in Atlanta have worked. Complaints of racially biased stops dropped 43% in the first year. Body camera evidence has exonerated 67 officers falsely accused and led to the termination of 11 officers who violated constitutional rights. The case is now studied in 47 police academies, 22 law schools, and 15 civil rights training programs. Henderson says, "Credentials don't protect you from bias. Authority doesn't protect you from assumptions. Nothing does except systems, body cameras, data tracking, independent oversight, accountability." She still walks through City Hall's third-floor corridor every day. Same route, same time, same navy blue suits. Officers wave now. They know who she is. They know what happened. And they know that assumptions based on race have consequences. The body camera that recorded March 14, 2024, is now part of a required system in every Georgia jurisdiction with more than 50 officers, millions of interactions recorded, thousands of careers protected, hundreds of problematic officers exposed. Because evidence doesn't lie, bias does. If this story showed you how profiling operates, even in institutions that should know better, share it. These stories need to reach people who have experienced similar situations and people who haven't yet realized how common they are. And if you have experienced something similar, know your rights, demand accountability, document everything. You're not alone. Thanks for watching Bodycam Truth Files.